Hi everyone, welcome back to this pilgrimage podcast. This is our third episode and we are coming to you from England in lockdown. So welcome, join us in our little music room as we call it. I'm Noah, I'm one half of this pilgrimage and I'm here with
Fraser.
the second half of this pilgrimage. So we thought today we would just sit down and have a little chat about what we learned in this time of lockdown. Obviously, we're still kind of in it, but I think we're slowly coming out of it, aren't we?
Yeah, it seems as though the restrictions here in the UK are slowly easing. I think in places like Germany and Italy, it's pretty much finished now.
Yeah, I think Europe is kind of on the other side of the bad peak. But yeah, we thought, we don't just want to talk about what we've learned, but also what our hopes are for society, what we hope that our world has learned in this time. Obviously, we'll have to see how things develop to see if we actually have learned anything. But we thought maybe that would be an interesting conversation. So, Fraser, do you want to kick us off? What have you learned?
Yeah, I think for us, Noah and I have both been working during the lockdown. We're fortunate, I think, in that we haven't been furloughed or anything like that. But at the same time, we've had to learn how to work from home, so that was a big adjustment.
Talk for
But
yourself.
well, yeah, I mean, it's not.
I'm
We both
joking.
really enjoyed it, but it was an adjustment to we've got a very small house, so where would we work? And just adjusting to that, I think, was a bit of a process. But
And it's not all negative. I think you're right. It's definitely an adjustment, but in some really good ways as
yeah,
well.
I don't say that in a negative way at all. I've really enjoyed working from home, and I think both of us have been quite productive working from home as well, probably.
Yeah, and we've managed to not distract each other.
Yeah, it's cool. I went to where I work one day and got a little desk from there. So we've set that up in the living room. So we take turns working there, and then we've already got set up in the room where we are now in the music room. So it works quite well.
Yeah, it's been good. So was that your biggest lesson, that you can work from home?
No, I think learning to work from home has been good because that's allowed us to be able to do more things at home. You know, like if you have a lunch break, you're at home, so you can do something. Or for me, I work part time for my main job, and then I've got some other jobs. So one of my jobs I can't do, which is music teaching, but another little business project that I have with my brother Timmy, shout out to Timmy. We've been able to do a lot of work with that. It's called Newman Bros Tone. If you want to check us out on YouTube, we basically buy and sell
Subtle
guitar
advertising
stuff.
right here.
Yeah, a little plug. So we've been able to do that a lot, which has been great. But then my other job, working as a youth worker, that's looked quite different. But I've kind of spread it out over the week rather than doing my specific 2.5 days.
And I think it's enhanced your creativity in terms of youth work and how you communicate with the youth, and you've had time to kind of develop videography and new skills, which has been really good.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've learnt a lot with that, with editing and stuff. And then your job is more 9 to 5-ish, isn't it? So
Yeah.
how have you found that at home?
Yeah, honestly, I've loved it. I thought that I would struggle a little bit more with the transition, which is why I kind of joked about it at the beginning. But I think I've really benefited from this time, really, because I can just go into my bubble, work hard, having no distraction. And at the same time, you've kind of got the comfort of home, so you can just kind of get up and make yourself a coffee when you need one. And I think because we've been on Zoom calls a lot, or whatever video calls people have used, for us it's been Zoom, it's surprisingly very tiring, I've found, to do that, but it's kind of taught me how to read people, let's say, in a different way, because you have to pay attention in a different way when you're on a video call, always trying to read what people are feeling as they're speaking, and sometimes with the dodgy connection and the screen that's not really good. I don't know, you just have to learn to read people in a different way. And I'm interested to see how that's going to impact us going back to normal office work. I wonder if our interactions would be a bit different. But yeah, overall, I've really enjoyed it. I've loved like having my lunch breaks and especially like finishing at 5, having no commuting or anything, and being able to switch off kind of straight away and going into home life. And obviously you've been there at the same time, so we've really been able to enjoy good times together, haven't we?
Mm,
And cooking
yeah.
together, doing things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think our life is at a much slower pace. Like I'm sure a lot of people's are.
Mm.
Although I understand like if someone has I don't know 3 kids and they're a single mum living in an apartment block, this must have been a very very difficult time
Yeah,
for them.
absolutely.
Um, but our experience is that it's been a lot of more of a slower pace because, like you said, we don't have the commuting, we don't have things that we might go out for in the evenings. Both of our lives evolve a lot around going out and meeting people and going to different events and stuff like that. So it's been really nice to not have that for a while, and that's meant that you have more space to get in touch with things that are on the surface maybe quite simple but are very meaningful. Like we've
Mm.
cooked meals every day apart from when we've had a nice curry takeaway, which we've done a few times, which
A
is
few
a
too many
treat.
times.
Um, but apart from that, I mean, you mostly, but I've cooked a fair amount as well, and
Mm.
we've both been able to make really nice meals and enjoy them.
And
Um,
it's like we generally cook every day anyway. Like we're not really the kind of people that get takeouts a lot, but I think just even in the way that we've been doing these things, the things we do every day, like cooking or whatever,
yeah,
it's just been different. There's been a different approach to it, and like we've done things together that we don't necessarily have the time to do usually, which has been really nice. Like Fraser, I've kind of helped him a bit with some cooking, and then he's taught me how to do some things on Logic so I can record myself playing the piano and singing, for example. So it's been really nice to kind of have this time to share things in life that don't necessarily find time to do generally, or not, or like we don't even think about, I think. Would you say that?
yeah, I think so.
Sometimes don't even
Yeah,
think about, oh, I'm going to teach, the person I live with to do this, or I'm going to accompany them on this little journey of learning something.
yeah, definitely. And I don't think you have time always in everyday life to do that, which is probably a problem.
Yeah.
Um, but I think as well, it teaches you things like the event of the day will be going for a walk in the evening or something when we finished, work, or the highlight of the week will be on a Saturday when we can go to, now we're able to go other places and be out for the whole day. So go
Mm.
somewhere and actually go for a walk through these nice woods. And it's nice to have that as the priority rather than like, I've got to go and do something or I've got to
Yeah.
be somewhere. I think that's quite nice.
Yeah, and um it's interesting to see that so many people are out, and obviously we still have to be careful with the regulations because so many people are out, but I think that's a really good sign for our society. As we were talking at the beginning, what have we learned, but also what has our society learned? Like we've talked about it a little bit, that we hope this is something that people will include in their everyday life more, just the simplicity of going for a walk in the woods that you live next to. I mean, even ourselves, we barely did that before. We did a couple of walks in the woods, but that's it. But like we've discovered so many different routes now, and
Mm.
just really appreciated what we have around us. And it's been nice to see families do that as well. I do really hope that it's something people take forward, not just like a walk in nature. Although I think that's huge because everything is on pause when you go for a walk.
Yeah.
And you don't even, even for the social media addicts, you don't have a connection to data or anything sometimes. So you're completely disconnected, and it must have done so much good
Mm.
in people's minds and health, all of
Yeah,
it.
definitely. And I think that's kind of a hallmark of this period of time is this disconnectedness that
Mm.
hopefully will lead to a greater connectedness with those around us. Like we've had a family Zoom call every Sunday night where we do a quiz, and it's been great to see everyone in that way. But we've all been saying we can't wait to be able to meet together again. And when I say family, I mean like extended family. So uncles and aunts and grandparents and stuff, which it's just been really nice. And we would never see each other once a week usually in that way.
And
Um,
we wouldn't have thought of doing a
yeah,
Zoom call in the
yeah.
past.
Well, most people didn't know what Zoom was before this time. I mean, we did, but a lot
We
of
have
people
some
didn't.
funny stories with that, with your granny.
Yeah, her connecting to the Zoom call, which I think,
She's
for
done well.
someone who's 80 odd years old to be able to do
She's
that,
done
it's very
amazing.
impressive. Yeah,
It is. I was more thinking of the first couple of Zoom calls we've had where Fraser's
yeah,
uncle had to FaceTime his granny and put the phone on a can of beer with your granny on FaceTime so that she could be part of the quiz because she didn't understand how to log in.
yeah, it was great.
No, she's done amazing though. Well done, Granny, if you're listening to this.
Yeah, so that's been really good, really fun, and but at the same time, I'm sure there's a lot of people, if you live on your own at this time, and for example, if you're an extrovert, this must be very difficult
Yeah.
because you've been forced to not be able to see people, and it hits a reset on your life, and your relationships with people. What are they going to look like when you don't see people at work every day, or your friends that you go out with, you can't go out with them anymore? Um, and I think it's an opportunity to dig into something deeper. And it's been interesting, the amount of people that have been Googling prayer or joining in with church services.
Mm.
I found that quite interesting. And just, yeah, trying new ways of relating to people out. And I think we're blessed that this happened in our day and age where we do have the connectivity, that we have. I think that's
Yeah.
been very important for people to stay in contact with people.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, like this podcast episode isn't to say like how, oh, we've just had such a good time in this lockdown. It's not about this because, like Fraser said, we totally realize that for some people it's been an extremely difficult time,
Yeah,
probably relationally, mentally, physically. Like I can really empathize with people that have struggled and totally understand, and we don't take our situation for granted. Like we're very grateful that we've been able to have a good time,
mm.
but the whole thing I think is about this reset. Whatever experience you've had, this has forced literally the whole of the planet to reset, and our hope is that society won't carry on the same in certain ways because of that reset. Because, like, let's be honest, we've never had such a dramatic event that literally put the whole world on pause like this, and it's been a really tragic time and extremely difficult and a time of grief, for so many people, and our hearts completely go out to them. And like I have some friends that have lost family members because of the virus, and I can't imagine what that's like, to actually lose someone that you can't even see in their last moment. It's horrible. But I do hope, like we do hope, that this would produce something good for the whole of society, that we would reset some of the ways in which we approach life. And like we were talking about this slower pace earlier,
Yeah,
there's just these kinds of moments really make you reconsider the foundations of your life and what actually matters, and why do we value a Zoom call so much? Why do we value just being able to get out of the house so much? Why do we value being able to walk in a supermarket to buy food without having restrictions and queuing and stuff? And
mm.
I think we should pay attention to that. It does
Yeah,
actually matter. It does talk about much more profound things.
yeah, definitely. And I think that it really, this time has helped us, and I'm sure helped so many other people reevaluate what is important to you.
Mm.
And when you strip back all the other things that we do in life, it really makes you realize, first of all, what is important, but also who is important in my life. And it brings everything back to those that you live with, and family, the dynamic of having family, and even stripping school away for a lot of children, and the parents have had to homeschool them, and
Mm.
it's going back to what it would have been like years and years ago,
Yeah, it's
which
true.
which is quite an amazing thing. And I know part of my education growing up was being homeschooled, and I'm so grateful that I had that opportunity, and I think it's great that children around the world are now having that opportunity to be in that environment with their parents, and you get to know each other in such a deeper way that often we miss in our society today. But maybe it shouldn't be like that. And again, not saying that it's easy, and we haven't had it necessarily all easy during this time. Like Noah was very ill, probably with the virus, although she hasn't been tested or wasn't tested for it, but was quite sick, probably for 3 weeks almost.
Yeah.
So it's not like it was all easy for us, but
And
I
still
think
recovering
it's,
in some ways. And it's
yeah,
put a lot of things on pause for us for about a month and a half because we had to stay in and all of it.
yeah, and I think but it's about perspective, isn't it? And
Exactly.
perspective in those things. And obviously, it was pretty rubbish when you're going through it. But you kind of sometimes you have to knuckle down and go through things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then around that time, we've had really amazing times as well. And even within that time when you were ill, of just being able to literally
Yeah.
have our lives stripped back to nothing, and it's almost like everything gets thrown up in the air,
Mm.
and then we're seeing now as we come out of this what lands. And I think that's where we can bring our hope for society into that, because we're seeing things have been thrown up in the air, and I think you've seen both sides of it in this time. You've seen extreme good of humanity,
Yeah.
but we've also seen, whether it's people just completely ignoring the rules for whatever reason, or even like the situation with the guy that got killed
George
just,
Floyd.
yeah, just a couple of days ago now, and that has just caused eruptions in the US of riots, and understandably people crying out for justice because it's such a horrible thing that's happened. But I think there's a sense in which underneath the bedrock of society there is this kind of pressure building, and
Mm.
it's always there. And I think you even saw it in a small way at the beginning of the lockdown, where the toilet paper was gone and silly
And the
things like
pasta.
that. People just panic bought because they didn't know this new thing was happening. So they're like, "Is this the end of the world? What's actually happening here?"
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when something like this happens, the cracks in society begin to emerge. And I think as a person, you have to evaluate and think, okay, what is my response to this going to be? Am I going to panic, or am I going to react in the right way? Or what's my response to things like injustice that happen in the world? Because obviously, the thing about this time that's helped us realise is that those things don't just stop when a pandemic happens, they're still there.
Yeah.
They're still there under the surface, and we're going to have to face those things. We can't hide away in our homes forever. We are going to return back to some sort of normality at some point. So we need to be ready for how we're going to respond to these things that they've maybe brought up, whether it's in ourselves personally or in other people, I think.
Yeah, I think that is so true. And it just made me think what you were saying about like the loo roll and stuff. The reason why people were panic buying like this as well is because of what they were reading and the media just reporting all these things. And it's a tiny thing, but
Yeah.
it did make me think it does really matter what you listen to when there's times of crisis. I mean, it
Yeah, that's
matters what
true.
you listen to at any point in life, but I think a time of crisis highlights that reality, this reality. And
Yeah.
we've thankfully, through even the time when I was really unwell and through the good times that we've had, equally we've walked through both of these times with a real sense of calm and peace. And um, I think especially for myself, if I can talk for myself just for a sec, I'm quite I'm easily anxious, to be honest with you. Um, and that's something that my mum actually told me a couple of weeks ago. She said, "It's amazing to see that you've not been anxious through this whole time, especially because you were ill." And I said, "You know what? That's true. I hadn't even thought about it, but I've really felt peace, like a real sense of deep calm, even when I was unwell, and even when the whole world was going a bit mental." Um, and I read this the other day. Well, the other day I read this. I think when I was unwell, So this is in the Bible, and it's Jesus talking to the disciples, and he said, "A time is coming, and in fact has come, when you'll be scattered, each to your own home." And I thought, whoa. And then he says, "You'll leave me all alone, yet I am not alone, for my Father is with me. I have told you these things, so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." And I love it because to me that's one of the reasons why I have faith. So I don't think it's wishful thinking. I don't think it's thinking the world is a beautiful place that will always go your way and you'll always have favor just because you believe in a greater being. This tells me that I have access to that peace. And, I experienced it without even thinking of this passage, in the middle of a personal crisis and a world crisis, being ill in the middle of a pandemic. And obviously some people have had it 100 times worse than me. And, like we said earlier, tragically, it has ended up in people dying. But God doesn't shy away from that and actually tells us that that's going to happen. But it doesn't mean that you have to lose the things inside of you that will help you walk through it.
Yeah.
It was just, I think it's a good thing to realize when you walk through these kinds of times.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well the thing with the verse that you shared is that it's up to us how we respond, because at that point Jesus was saying to his disciples about his death when they were going to scatter and he was going to be on his own, but he's never on his own. And I think that for us as people, we can learn a lot from that. Of do we, maybe you felt very alone during this time, and there is a place in which we can have a relationship with God that means that we are never alone, even if we're physically alone. Spiritually, we're never alone. And I think that hopefully, my hope for this time is that people have begun to ask themselves some of life's big questions away from the busyness and the noise of everyday life, and that people will turn to what I believe to be the source of life in order to find that there is a meaning to life, and that there's an opportunity not just for abstract concepts of God, but actually a relationship with Him, in order to find that inner peace that Noah described that she was able to walk through this time with.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's all, we could argue that this spiritual reality, because you were talking about that, that it's a greater experience than even our being, our physical reality. Like, just think about when you're left alone with your thoughts, and like in this time, everything has been stripped back and you're just left alone with your values and your thoughts, and there's nothing else. There's not even people around. And here Jesus is saying that even in these moments, there's that greater spiritual reality and connection. And
Yeah.
that's something no one can take away from you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the most important response to times like this, because, there's been loads of responses on, in Christian circles and outside, whether it's the end of the world, there's this is a judgment or something that's been sent by God because we're so wicked, or the other side of like, this is a conspiracy, it's not even real, it's the government and it's actually even worse than the pandemic because of what they're doing. And it's, whatever the truth is, we believe as Christians that the truth is a person. So, it's so hard to know with all these ideas that go around on the internet, especially in our day and age, what is actually true. But we believe that all we can do on our micro level is respond in the way that the Bible teaches us, which ultimately we see exemplified in Jesus and how he responded to things that he went through. And as Christians, we don't believe that this life is a walk in the park. Like Jesus says in that verse, in this world you will have trouble, but when you do have this trouble, don't fear, because I've overcome the world. And so that's the message that we have chosen to carry personally.
Yeah.
And, the message that we believe is what the world needs to hear at this time as we pick up the pieces from COVID-19 and begin to walk towards some sort of normality.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's the overall message of this pilgrimage is that thank goodness it's not a walk in the park, because how would we know the value of life if everything was good and happy all the time? And I believe that there is coming a day when that's going to be the reality. And that's why it matters how we walk these moments where things aren't a walk in the park, because it actually shows us the value of goodness and the value of life. And yeah, I feel like that's what we've learned overall, I would say. And
Yeah.
definitely our hopes for the world. I hope that society is going to learn to shift the whole value system a bit and put the individual at the center of value again, and not hustling and, I don't know, busyness all the time. I think stripping back to a slower pace and a more simple life, and a life that requires you to queue and to depend on other people and to take measures that you wouldn't necessarily want to take, but that you do to protect other people, are values that I hope will have a greater impact on our world.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, that was our thoughts. These have been our thoughts for the past, I don't even know what week we're in. 11?
Yeah, something
Week
like that. It
10
was
or
in March,
11.
wasn't it? And we're now in May. So
Yeah. We're in June tomorrow.
are we?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. So that's been our thoughts. Hopefully it's kind of resonated with you, or given you a bit of food for thought, or encouraged you in a small way. But thank you so much. Really value your time. Really, really value just you sitting down and listening to this podcast. We're not doing this because we think we have loads of answers, but we just enjoy discussing some things and hoping that it brings something to someone out there.
Yeah, definitely. We often have chats together. We love talking together, whether it's around dinner or on our recent COVID-19 walks or in the car. So it's nice to be able to just record them and hope that maybe people find them interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much. Have a nice rest of today, whatever you do, and we will speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.